Welcome to the Slices of Time Street Photography podcast. Today, I'm joined by Bart Azare, aka Bartdoetdestraat on Instagram. We'll probably get into how his work changed over the past 20 years of doing street photography or just photography, and then his seeming love for metropolitan cities. He also just told me in the conversation before we started recording about deep in photography, so maybe that's an interesting point as well. So for now, Bart, perhaps it's interesting to introduce yourself for a second.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for the invite, Fred. I'm surprised to get the invite, so really nice to be here. So my name is Bart Azare. I've been photographing for 20 years, and my main focus is street photography. And let's start with some serious name dropping here. I used to be really influenced by Martin Parr in the beginning years. And when I see the evolution, I become more of a Soul Lighter fan.
Okay.
So the focus really changed in these 20 years. But street photography will always be my main focus, I think. I like to do other stuff like portraits or more making of stuff, fly on the wall stuff. But street photography is in photography really my big love.
And did you ever do like street portraits or like ask people on the streets?
Not enough. That's a goal for 2025, I think. I did one in Paris on my latest trip. And I was a bit struggling that day to make good photographs. And I was watching a guy who was putting up posters for a singer, a French singer that I didn't know, but she was just behind me. And she saw that I was taking pictures of the guy who was putting up the posters. And she said, "Do you know, I'm the artist."
Oh, really?
So we had a little chat, and that was sort of my intro to do the portraits, really. So
that's fun.
1 minute, 2 minutes for a few portraits. And I was so pleased that I did it, that after that, my photos were beginning to get better that day because I was struggling. I don't know why. It was a really great day in Paris. The light wasn't very interesting. But making that street portrait gave me, my enthusiasm came back. So that's really a nice thing.
There's already a lot you just said for me to unpack or I want to get deeper into. I'm gonna sum them up so we just know we remember them.
Sure.
But we'll go into them one by one. The first one was the goal setting. So you said like that's a goal for 2025. Like I want to get deeper into that if that's something you do more often in street photography, like setting a specific goal you want to try or do, like in long periods or short periods, like today or this year. The struggling for the day and finding the sudden motivation as well. And maybe also like the interaction with the people around you. So let's start with the goal setting, perhaps. So like, is it something, because now you mentioned like that's something for 2025 that you want to do, like the streets portraits. Do you have that often that you make like a goal to yourself, or is it more often that you like it just happens sometimes that you have like
it's more the second thing.
Okay.
You know, in my day job, I work in communication. I work on press relations. I work on social media. It's teamwork. We have certain goals per year, and it's a very, let's say, rational approach to something. My photography is the opposite. It's really, really intuitive. And for me, photography is just a reason to leave the house.
Yeah.
It's an excuse to book a city trip. And I don't have specific goals, I think. But of course, if you go somewhere, you do a bit of research. When you go to a certain city, you look at certain photographers that are really active there. That can be an inspiration or a starting point. But when I'm in a city, it's most of the time I wake up and I decide I'll go to that neighborhood. Or maybe there's an event that I read about that can be interesting too. And then during the daytime, everything changes because
Yeah.
you see other things that are much more interesting, and you focus on that.
Yeah.
But I think that nowadays it's the daytime. I look for interesting lights, and most of the time I'm shooting with my Ricoh GR3
Mhm.
all day. And then there's nighttime where I take out my Fuji X-T5 now with a 56 millimeter lens, and I'm totally into night photography. So of course you're gonna look for interesting scenes, interesting artificial light, and I think those are two worlds for
Hmm.
me. I seldom take out my Fuji during daytime. The last couple of trips I took.
Okay.
It's very strange. It's just the way it goes. But it's fine for me. I mean, it works
Yeah.
in a certain way. And the Ricoh work is consistent and Fujifilm is consistent. I don't know if both are consistent. I don't know. Maybe that's a goal for next year. Because it's a bit different approach, I think, in
Okay.
terms of lenses, etc., and how the photos look. It's different.
Yeah. And like, do you have like, I have to see how I have to word this, but so you have like you have a different daytime and nighttime, well, get setup for gear, but also like what you look for.
Yeah,
Because one way is the natural light that you're looking for, and the other way it's the moments. Do you think it's like two separate portfolios, or is there like still for you like a coherent?
Good question. I think for the moment it's not coherent. So maybe I have to work on that or not. I don't know. Usually during daytime, I walk a lot and I look
Mhm.
for, let's say, an interesting scene, and I wait for people to pass by. So I could be standing there for 5 minutes, but it could be 20 minutes.
Okay.
That's kind of the thing I'm looking for. And at nighttime, I don't do a lot of miles. I don't stand around corners or anything. It's really fast. So, well, for example, I'm in Soho, which I love at night in London. I don't stand for 20 minutes on a corner, but I do rounds.
Okay.
Come
Yeah.
back to a location 4 or 5 times. I don't know why, but it works for me. But in daytime and nighttime, I don't hide from other people. I'm there in plain sight. It's not that I'm sneaking up on people, because day and night has a lot of interaction with people. They see me. They sometimes ask me, "Did you just take my picture?" We have a little chat about it. It's always friendly, never a problem. So I use a 56 at night millimeter,
Mhm.
but it's not for sneaking up on people.
No. No.
Not
Yeah.
really. Even the way I dress, it's not all in black or something. It's not. I like the interaction. You know, a
Yeah.
little smile, a little nod.
Mhm.
They won't be in the pictures per se,
No. Yeah.
but I like that. And I also find out like that photography is not um, a lonely hobby or something. Not at all. I met a lot of people through photography. So that's one of the things when we come back to that street party in Paris that really gave me energy and enthusiasm. And it's that interaction between sometimes other photographers, just people on the street. I really like that. It's
Okay. Cool. Yeah. It's something I it's funny how it can go both ways for photographers. Like I've heard your approach as well. Like I know in the Simon Ogden mentioned about it in his episode as well, that he likes to have like he uses it to get interaction with people.
Yeah,
But
I
at the
listened
same
to that
time,
episode. It was really
yeah,
interesting. It's more or less the same experience.
yeah. But at the same time, you have like, for example, Iris Straat's photo, and she's like very much like she doesn't make eye contact with the people because she doesn't want the interaction. She wants
Yeah, okay.
she's like in a in like a flow at that stage. So it's like it's funny to hear those both sides. To me, I'm not sure what I rarely have any interaction so far. I'm also not very much like I don't. Well, not that you're like Bruce Gillen style in people's face, of course.
No, me
But
neither.
it's like I'm less close to the people I photograph for now. It's something I try to train on. But it's so for me, it's like the interaction is less of a factor still. But it's cool, yeah. And it's do you experience a difference in interactions during nighttime and daytime? Is it like more different?
Well, it's more or less the same. For myself, I have to really be relaxed and really be focused at the same time.
Mhm.
Of course, nighttime photography can be a bit more challenging when you're out at night and people had a few drinks. It's different than during the daytime. You
Yeah.
know? So I don't remember any interactions that were not nice.
Mhm.
Not really, but it has to do with your own attitude as well. If you're
Yeah,
really
of course.
polite and nice and you explain what you're doing, maybe show your Instagram feed,
Yeah, sure. But I can
no
imagine
one will bother.
people are at night maybe a bit more like careful and they're like
Yeah,
more
sure.
suspicious. But if you don't have that idea, then okay. And you mentioned like after people have had a couple of drinks, how late at night do you stay out then? Or
Well, the last time I was in London, it was nighttime at 5:30, I think,
oh wow,
p.m. So that's nice, of course. What I usually do, I walk
oh
around
wait,
all day with my Ricoh, and
Mhm.
at 4:30, I would go out my Fuji, shoot for 2 hours, and have a drink and eat something. Then a couple of hours after that, and I finish up. It's rarely that I would go shooting until midnight or something.
Oh okay, yeah.
Maybe in summertime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure. If it's short, yeah.
I
No, because you
remember.
mentioned like drunk people or like people that had a couple of drinks. Usually that's later at night. But I was wondering
Yeah, yeah.
how late at night you would stay out because at some points, like even cities like Brussels or London, there's not not too many people around anymore to photograph, or not too many restaurants open to provide light on the streets. I can assume.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Uh,
but yeah,
must say that at night I rarely shoot groups. It's more one person in a certain
Mm,
situation. That's what I like also. Very simple photos, not too much elements.
yeah,
A lot of abstraction in it too. I love that. We talked about Soul Lighter earlier. Yeah, that's for me the most important influence at that moment in time. But I see a lot of quality on Instagram too, especially
yeah,
nighttime photography. And when you focus, for example, on London, the quality that's out there, it's really impressive. It's
yeah,
really
yeah.
impressive. So maybe it's a bit of a cliche to say everyone is a photographer, of course, nowadays with iPhones, etc. But I see a lot of quality. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm happy with my shots,
Mhm.
and then I go 15 minutes on Instagram, and I see, oh, there's
Yeah,
still a lot of work to do. But
yeah,
that's fine, it's normal.
yeah. It's like there's first point I want to make. Like everyone's a photographer these days, but I find like, for example, yeah, I do photography for businesses, but I also
Mhm.
give workshops in smartphone photography to those businesses.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I noticed that even though everyone has a camera, people still, or maybe because everyone has a camera, they appreciate good photography more because they can experience how difficult it is.
Yeah.
Because everyone has a camera, they can make photos and they can see like theirs are, I'm not going to say absolute shit, but like, they make a photo and they see the difference between their photo and that one of someone, like even with the same device, that's a lot better. So I find that everyone's a photographer, maybe like, yeah, there's a lot of competition in that sense, but also
Mhm.
people appreciate the quality more. I think, or that's at least what I've noticed. And then my second point that I wanted to get into, I forgot. Oh no, I remember. Sorry. So like in the 20 years so that you do photography, so you started in 2004. I
Yeah.
forget when Instagram was created. I think it's 2010 or something.
I don't know. Yeah.
Let's have a quick look. Good. October 6th, 2010, exactly. Wow. So like did you get on Instagram, for example, very fast, and did you
No.
see the evolution around it, or
Instagram for me, I was on Instagram, not a lot. It came through the COVID years,
okay, so
where
recently, yeah.
like all of us, we were stuck at home, so we had a lot of time. And so I went through all my Flickr page to look at my photos. I saw a lot of crap. I saw a bunch of really good photos, but more crap than good photos. And I was wondering why that was. And maybe I was going in too much directions, which is a good thing when you start out. I think when you start out, you have to try everything.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you find something that you really like and that you can invest in. But starting buying a camera as a beginner and automatically say, I will just do this, that's a bit strange. I would always recommend to people try everything.
Yeah, true.
And maybe when you find your thing, you will do it a lot, and the chances are that you will be good at it. And in terms of gear, maybe then you can decide what kind of gear you really have to have.
True. Yeah.
That's the classic discussion about gear. But if you do that route and you have your gear, which you know then really well, it's easier to make good work and consistent work, let's say.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And when I was starting out, I had a little Canon Xus 100. When I look at it, it was more black and white in color, which is strange because I don't do any black and white anymore. And it was more about finding interesting characters than anything else. And it was a bit my Martin Parr face, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was looking for emotions and humor. Maybe now I've become serious, but that's not an issue anymore. I'm more about these days, about mood and atmosphere. And my dream photo would be that it could be a still of out of a movie. That's
Okay. Yeah.
maybe that's a goal I have in mind. It doesn't happen a lot, but if it happens, I'm really glad with it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you started out with street photography right away in 2004, or was it more like you had already had a bit of a history?
No, I just had that little camera always on me. When I go to work, when I went out with friends, when I was traveling. And then I think the big one was in 2009, when I got the greatest gift ever from my dad, which was a Canon 5D, which is quite a gift. And then I combined that with a 50mm, and that was my go-to lens for everything, for street photography. And when I was doing some portraits for my work, for example, or fly in the wall stuff, when we were recording videos, etc. I even did a shoot of, there was a big shoot of a short film, 7 days. I did everything with the 50mm.
Okay. That's a great lens, yeah.
Yeah, and it is a great lens. It was very light sensitive, and maybe I would have panicked and took 4 lenses at that shoot of that short film, but I would be confused about what lens to use when. So it was good that I had this one lens with me.
Yeah.
And that's more or less my go-to these days also. I don't have 5 lenses on me. It's most of the time it's just one lens. But the Ricoh in the daytime, the Fujifilm with the 56 at night. That's my go-to gear at this moment. And I don't see myself changing a lot. to be
No,
honest.
I was gonna ask because, like, now that you mentioned about the 50 millimeter earlier, like, I'm not sure the Ricoh, can it zoom or is it like,
No, it's I have it's 28 millimeter, I think.
okay, it's a fixed lens as well.
Yeah, so
And
it's not extremely wide, but it's wide enough to take the shots that I like.
I
Love it.
find 28 very wide already, but
Yeah,
for me, it's, yeah, like for me, 35 is like the like a wide angle, and everything more than that is extremely wide to me. But it's I'm getting used to it, like the 28, for example. But
yeah.
it's
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, for me, it's like I lean more to like the 50
Yeah,
millimeter, but it's yeah, it's as I said, personal choice, and I that's to me it's crazy. Like for example, you get fairly close to people,
yeah,
and to me it's crazy you can do that with a 28 millimeter because it's really close. While with a 15 millimeter, the same like perceived distance in the photo, let's say, would put me like quite a distance.
well,
Uh,
that's the advantage of the Ricoh, I think. It's really small.
mm,
I wouldn't say that it's an ugly camera, but it doesn't look
it
uh,
looks kind of touristy, yeah.
yeah. So when you're in a big city, let's say at a corner, and everybody's waiting to cross the road, they don't notice anything
Mm,
because it's so small,
yeah,
and you can get really, really close with that.
true. I must I must admit, for me, I thought that a smartphone would be less obvious to people than
Yeah.
a camera. But I think it was this summer. No, it wasn't. It's like only a month ago. I was sitting somewhere. I was squatting because I wanted to take a low shot because of the reflections in a puddle. And I noticed that people were more watching at me because of my smartphone, because it was like, what's the guy doing on his phone, squatting in the square?
Ah, yeah, yeah,
And I was thinking like if I was doing this with my camera, I never had the issue because people were like, oh yeah, he's taking a photo. So
yeah.
it's I think it works in multiple ways, but still, yeah, a small camera is less obvious, especially if you're just standing around. Of course, for me, the aspect was I was squatting down. Of course, I was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like in the dark as
Also, with
pile of wood.
the Fuji as that retro look,
Mhm.
sometimes people think that it's a film camera.
Ah, okay, it's
I
like
had
that.
that a lot of, especially when you have the silver model, not the black one. Sometimes people think it's a film camera.
Yeah, it's a camera that looks like a camera.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Uh,
nice.
so that's yes, very nice. Um, so we were talking about earlier about your 20 years of experience, of course, and you mentioned you had a bit of a like a dip in I'm not sure motivation or interest or um,
Yeah, I used to go traveling, especially for photography, and over the years that changed a bit. I just
mhm.
went to enjoy a city or something else.
So you kept the
And
traveling going, but the
yeah, yeah,
photography
yeah.
kind of lost.
But
Okay.
I realized that I didn't take that much pictures, and it's not that I lost completely interest, but there was something going on. And then in the COVID years, going through all my work, looking at other photographers, really be interested in the kind of more atmospheric, moody shots, bit more abstract. I would not say go away from people. There's always a human element, I think, in my
Yeah.
photos. But in the beginning years, people that were in it were always recognizable. That's not the case anymore. Maybe 50% of the time could be just their shadow or reflection or a silhouette.
Hmm.
So that changed through the years. And it's crazy enough, when I bought Rico, I was a bit more again with the multi-par approach of of humor and more
Hmm.
close-ups of people, etc. So yeah, it's a mixture of both, really.
Okay. And so finding the motivation during the COVID years was mainly because you saw other people's work, or
I think I was bored with my own work. That's
Yeah. Okay.
that's sure. And I had the feeling that the evolution of my work wasn't right. And then I picked up a Fujifilm camera, and especially with the 56 mm lens, which I keep you telling about, but that changed
Yeah. But it's,
all of it. And my main focus was there on night photography. The lens is great, and I took pictures. I didn't exactly know what I was doing, to be
mhm.
honest, and I've got that still to this day. Sometimes I know what I want and I know what I'm doing, but half the time I don't know. And I'm really surprised sometimes by the end result.
Yeah. No.
So
Yeah.
maybe I know that I would take, let's say, a photo of that silhouette,
Mhm.
but I don't look around what's in the frame. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's really surprising, especially when you're shooting at, let's say, 1.2 f. It's especially in these abstract pictures, reflections, etc. Sometimes the results are really surprising to me, and I love that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's often like after a while, especially I can imagine like for me already, and I'm only doing street photography for like 2 years or so, or not even. But I can imagine after 20 years that there's a lot of intuition going into it. Like
Yeah,
sometimes you just know, like I need to take that photo. There's like one photo I took 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I remember making it, but I barely remember thinking. It was more like I was actually making another photo. This happened. I just
yeah,
made it very fast. So I understand the routine you have in it, like
yeah. I've got
that it
that too.
happens.
Maybe it's my age, but sometimes when I come home and I look at my pictures, I don't remember them. I
Yeah.
didn't have that 10 years ago. I always knew, okay, I did that, and maybe that one will be good.
Hmm.
Now it's not the case anymore. I discover a lot of things when I'm opening my laptop, and that's brilliant.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's like a second photo walk,
Yeah, yeah,
almost.
yeah. It's very intuitive. I do a lot of things unconsciously.
Hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I think that means that you know what you're doing, that you have your
No,
style and
no,
your
no, not. I don't. A lot of the time, I
subconsciously
don't know
probably you
what
do.
what I'm doing, and sometimes it's not that I don't take credit for the photos I
No,
took,
no, yeah, but
but
I understand what
it's
you mean.
real surprises in there,
Hmm.
and photos that you think, oh, that will be crap, turns out to be better than the other ones.
Yeah.
And also, what really helped me in my day job when I do find the wall stuff when we're recording videos or a podcast or something, I realized that my street photography uh, comes back there. After 20 minutes, when you're in the studio, people forget that you are there and taking pictures. And those results are much better than when I do post photos, for example.
Hmm.
People are concentrating on their thing, um, and it sort of is a sort of reportage which reflects the mood of that day. It's sort of the
Hmm.
story of that day, but people don't realize that I took the photos,
Yeah.
and that's really nice. And then I think that comes from my street photography.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's I do a lot of events professionally and then street photography, and there's a lot of similarities for sure.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
with the events too. They forget that you are there.
yeah, well, you try your best not to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
too obvious, but yeah, and it's so that's kind of why that's not why I started doing street photography because that's just I enjoy it, but I see a lot of similarities, so I understand your what you're saying.
Why
Uh,
did you start street photography then?
that's a good question. That's yeah, very good question. I was living in Brussels at that point.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think it was just like a way to like get to know my camera better, to get
Yeah.
to know my lenses better, just like a practice run for events, but then just like because you don't have events every day, of course. So it was just like go out and try to see what's there. Because at first I'm not sure if I even it wasn't like a conscious decision to do like I'm going out to do street photography. It was just
Okay.
like
Yeah.
I'm going out to have fun with my 50 mm lens, for example,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or like I gave myself challenges like it was for a while, for example, like don't photograph while looking through the viewfinder, or don't,
Okay.
or I can only make photos that are upside down, or, and after a while, it's like I'm doing street photography, and then it got a title, and then I started to get into street photography and more into the culture and getting books that are specific to street
Okay.
photography and not just photography. Because to me, like it's well, it's of course street photography is a photography genre, but it's very specific. It's not like portraiture or landscape, or even though all those get combined into street photography often, because you can make like city landscapes, you can make like street portraits, but it's like street photography is almost like an art form of itself to me, next to photography,
Yeah.
if that makes
Interesting.
sense. So yeah, like books about photography for me are like seldom really get into street photography. I find it's always like portrait or landscape um, photography, which I find, I mean, I'm not gonna say boring. I don't want to offend anyone, uh, but it's like because I used to be really into macro photography, but now I find that street photography is much more interesting. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's something I don't know. I just slowly fell into it, and then discovered myself in this hole in the ground that's called street photography, and
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
I'm digging deeper.
So we lived in Brussels. I didn't know that. Brussels is an amazing city to
Yeah, I
photograph.
lived there for like 2 years, around the corner of Saint-Géry, so
Yeah.
very much in the city
Middle of the
center.
center. Yeah.
So I could go out within 5 minutes. I was somewhere
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting. But to me, it was because I was not really photographing people that much. So for me, it was like really, I'm not sure. Like that's why I didn't call it street photography, because it was too difficult to. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. It was an odd period.
Yeah. 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 But I like photography in Brussels. It's very chaotic
Yeah.
as a city. Every city has its vibe. I think London, for example, the tempo is really high.
Hmm.
People are in a hurry. I think if you look at Berlin, they're much more relaxed.
Hmm.
Berlin is a strange one. I went 5 times, and it's only on my last trip that I took good photos.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Or
Yeah.
the 4 trips before, I had a lovely time, but my photos were crap. And Berlin was my first city trip after COVID.
Hmm.
5 days, 3 days in the rain and a sunny weekend. And the 3 days in the rain opened my eyes because I was there for the first time with the Fuji film and my favorite lens. It was raining all the time, but at night it was amazing because you get all these amazing reflections on the road, etc., neon lights. And suddenly I found something new
Okay.
that I knew that I was looking for from being stuck at home at the COVID years, but I didn't realize to do it. And somehow I found a way on that trip to Berlin, and that changed everything for me.
Okay. So that was that like the real revival of your
Yep,
photography
yep,
fun,
yep,
or yeah, okay.
absolutely. I don't know why.
Hmm.
Um, it was, I mostly shot at night in the same neighborhood near my hotel, just near Alexanderplatz. And I don't know why, but the inspiration came back and the pleasure came back. It was amazing. I
Okay.
was really, really happy.
But you were still continuing doing photography, but you just kind of fell out of love with it, or you just did it like out of habit, or no?
I did it more for work purposes than on my own, I realized the years before. and I don't know exactly what it was.
Okay.
That said, I think going out on the streets and doing your thing and meeting other people, it's really good for your mental health. I mean,
Yeah.
now I've been to Paris 3 weeks ago. I'm still having the aftermath of that positive
Okay,
feeling,
nice.
and it was
Yeah.
such a nice trip. I enjoyed it. Met a few very nice people. Really nice.
Yeah, cool. And is it like people on the street or people like that do photography as well and you met up to
Both.
Okay.
Um, that being said, photographing with other photographers, I don't like. I don't know
Okay.
why. It's
Yeah.
nice. We have a nice time, but for photography itself,
Mm.
it doesn't work for me. So I
That's
don't
something I've
do it
heard
a
a lot,
lot.
yeah.
I don't know if you do it.
I have done it, not that often as well, because as you said, like it's a very unproductive moment because
Yeah.
you're having a good time. It's fun.
Yeah.
You're taking photos and you're talking like we're talking now, but you're not like you're probably missing a lot of moments that you would have seen otherwise. But at the same time, I do like it. For example, as I mentioned, like earlier with the 28 millimeters, I didn't understand the lens until I went out with Thilo. He was here in Antwerp he was on a trip in Antwerp. So I met up with him to show him around. And like I saw him work with a 28 millimeter, and to me, then all of a sudden, like I saw what he was doing and I understood it better. So at the same time, like you're less productive, but for me, it's also like a very big learning moment. Apparently, I'm very much of a monkey see, monkey do kind of person. So I see someone do it. Like I love photo books, so I like looking at photos of other people, but they don't. For some reason, I can't distill out of them how to make a photo.
Okay.
For example, like I have your blog post about London street photography with Rico GR3. And there's like, for example, I'm gonna have a look for a photo that tells it. I don't know. Like you have a photo of a person with like a sign, Jesus came to save the world, and there's like a guy walking right in front of the camera. Or like next to it, it's like a close-up photo of someone with a British flag. So I appreciate those photos, but I can't like. It's not that I see them and I'm like, okay, I can do this as well and know how to do it. While if I see another photographer, I'm like, okay, that's what they're doing. I see the photo on the back of their screen and I have like an idea of like, okay, this is a possible result. And that advances me more than looking in a photo book. So in a way, I need to meet up with people or even like talking to you like about certain things here. It helps me more than looking at photos for some weird reason.
It's funny that you mentioned those two photos, because the first one with the woman with the Jesus thing, I was not alone. I was with my best friend and his two sons in London, and we were just doing a walk in town, and I just took some snapshots, and that was one of them. And then the other photo, we were at Big Ben. We said goodbye at that moment, and we catched up later at night to go to a concert. And I did an hour walk on my own, and the photo with the British flag was 5 minutes later, in fact.
Okay.
And it was different because the first one was shot while we were walking, more or less.
Okay.
And the second one, not at all. I was there for 20 minutes on a little bridge where the light was nice.
Yeah.
So if I would have been in with my friends, I wouldn't have taken that second photo because I wouldn't say to them, look, the light is great here. Can you wait here for 20 minutes?
No, of course.
You don't do that. So that's really funny. But it's true what you say. I'm interested how people make their photos. I've got a great photo book by Mr. Whisper called London After Dark. and he does some POVs on YouTube, but also shorts on YouTube where he explains how he took certain pictures, and he gives really, really good tips. One of the tips I realized that's something that I do all the time. It's repetition. Go back to the same places at different moments during the day. Repetition is often in key to getting it more or less right, I think.
Yeah.
And he's a brilliant photographer. I love his book. His book is amazing. And it's not the biggest philosopher, I think, on photography. He doesn't have a lot of, intellectual blah, blah, but his tips are spot on.
Yeah, but that's what I like, because for me, books that are too philosophical and too or try to intellectualize photography too much are kind of like they pull me away. It's like, let's make it fun. It's like you don't have to go too deep into some photos. Like it was actually a quote that I wrote down yesterday, I think. It's from the Elliot Erwitt. So it's a book, Found Not Lost, which was like photos he never published. He published recently, because I bought it at the exhibition in Brussels. There's like a great exhibition of him that I can really recommend. And there's like a quote, like, he makes the pictures that he sees, and sometimes that's that. And I found like, yeah, that's like, let's not dive too deep into all the photos. Like, why did you make them? Sometimes just it was visually interesting, or it was a funny moment, or whatever, and that's fine as well. So like, I like that you say it like it's not the biggest philosopher, but that's fine. Like
in the last days, I was panicking a bit about this interview, because I don't think about it.
But that's fine.
It's a lot of intuition, and when it really comes to it, that first of all, you have to look, and maybe then you will see something, and you think, I'm gonna take a picture of that, and then I'm curious, what will it actually look like? Sometimes you know more or less, and sometimes you don't know at all. And I don't like to look a lot at my screen. It's a waste of time, especially when you're out there in the streets. I don't do it a lot. Sometimes maybe with that street portrait, I wanted to make sure that was sharp.
Yeah, sure, of course.
But not going through my photos during traveling. I don't like that. Take your time, and you will look at your pictures when you're at home.
True,
it doesn't help you, I think.
Not necessarily. Sometimes I am a bit of I do look at the screen sometimes, but also just like to check quickly, like, is the exposure still right? Because sometimes you do like a -2 exposure compensation, and then you forget that you've set it, and then you made a different photo. Like, normally it's like I've arranged that the viewfinder shows me what the photo will look like. I've only changed that recently because I didn't find the settings for that, but that helps a lot already. So then that helps to look less at the screen, indeed. Because of course, like, if you're somewhere that you can remake the photo, then it can be useful. But often it's a moment, and if it's gone, it doesn't really matter if you can change it right now or then. It's only at night at home that you can do the selection.
But sometimes also when I'm walking around town, it happens that I don't take a picture for 1 hour or 2 hours because I don't see anything.
Yeah, of course.
And then you have that really frustrating thing where you just take the photo a bit too early or a bit too late, and you don't have what you were looking for. That happens too. And then there's that idealistic thing that sometimes happens, that you're really in a sort of mode. You're always like you're watching a movie, and you don't think about anything, just concentrating on what's happening. and you forget everything about your own life and your worries or anything else. Um, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm in that mood and I stop photographing, I certainly feel, oof, I'm tired, I'm thirsty. I didn't
Mm.
feel that moments before when I was in my modus of I'm photographing.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen a lot.
No, but I recognize it. Yeah, it's. I think everyone listening will probably have had that moment at least once, hopefully.
Yeah,
But it's
it's
yeah, it's a
amazing.
great moment. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
To me, I've found that I'm often a bit better in doing street photography when I'm just like a slightly bit too tired, like not
Because
exhausted.
you
Yeah,
slow
because
down, you slow down.
yeah, and you get into that like non-thinking mode easier,
Yeah.
I think. But and then of course, like I'm not sure how long you do your photo walks. Uh, I'm learning now that I can go all day. Like I used to think that I couldn't, that it's like 3 hours max. But now I've just learned like you need to take regular, like take a break in a coffee shop, sit there
Yeah, me
for
too.
half an hour, have a coffee, and then go out again for 2 hours and have another coffee. So that's something I always thought photographers would go out like, like go out at 9 o'clock in the morning, you return at 9 o'clock at night, and you were walking nonstop. But you take so much time in between, just having coffee, maybe visit a museum
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or something. So that's
But
it's
then
not.
it's very useful to be, if you're only in the city for 2 or 3 nights, it's a big difference when you're there for, let's say, a week.
Hmm,
You're have the urgency to rush yourself when you only have 2 or 3 nights.
perhaps, yeah.
That's something that I struggle with
Do
sometimes.
you like, because you organize your city trips to do photography, or is
Yeah.
it more like, yeah? And is it like, do you because that's something I struggled with like two or 3 weeks ago. Is it like, do you expect a certain output from yourself, or?
Um, well, when I had my bad years, I
Mhm.
came back and I knew that I didn't have any good pictures. I just knew it on that trip already, and that was kind of depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to have an output. Yeah, you have this silly idea that every time you go out, you will take a good one. That's if I have a good one every month, that should be really great. But if I have a good picture, a really good one every once a year, that would be amazing.
Okay, once a year. Okay, that's
Yeah,
that's
I have been photographing street for 20 years. I don't have 20 amazing pictures.
no. Okay, yeah. Of course, there's amazing. There's good. There's great, and there's amazing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and of course you can't, you shouldn't do it, but you do it all the time. You compare with other people, and if you would compare it to the whole history of photography,
Yeah.
yeah, of course you're not the most amazing photographer ever. But to have a one shot a year, oh, that would be great.
Okay, but yeah, like a great photo, yeah, of course. But like, for example, I see your London street photography here. It's like part three, I think. And there's like, let's have a look. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. There's like just shy of under 20 photos, I think. But they're all good photos. But you're like, do you have like an expectancy? Like I go to, for example, Berlin, and I want to come back with like 20 good photos, one great photo, and like hopefully, of course, one amazing photo. But that's
No, I think I'm more relaxed now. I just want to have a nice time walking around
okay.
and taking pictures.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it will come by itself.
Mm. Okay.
But what I realize, sometimes I publish a photo, let's say on Instagram, and I'm really happy with it. 2 days later, I think, it
Yeah.
wasn't the, yeah.
No. Yeah.
So,
I think everyone is that. Yeah.
but yeah, being really satisfied with your own work, it's a bit, I don't have it a lot, and it's not a good thing to. I never go to a city trip and say, now I'm gonna make a brilliant series.
No, yeah, of course.
No,
Yeah.
that's
But you're not disappointing yourself if at the end of the trip you're like, I don't have any like good photos or like too little good photos. It's like
no, and sometimes it's really strange because I was 3 nights in Paris and the 2 days, first days were okay, but it's only the last night that I took good photos that were also a little bit different.
mhm.
I think the subjects, when there were people in it, they were very far away. So it was more of uh, not a cityscape, but you had much more context than
Yeah,
on other things. And that's something that was very unconsciously. And I think I want to explore that more.
okay, cool.
Maybe take more distance.
Mm.
Take a few steps back when I would naturally take that frame, take a few steps back. Or I photographed people from 50 meters to 100 meters on that night. And I really like that. I don't know
Yeah,
why,
okay.
but it was something different. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
And that, of course, keeps you going when you, via accident, found something out that you didn't know about your own thing. That's really nice.
yeah, definitely. I was gonna ask for a second as well, like you mentioned, during your down years or bad years, as you call them, I think, that you came back from tripping, like all the photos are bad. Have you revisited those photos since then, just like to have like did you actually watch the photos at home and like maybe now again to see like if they were actually bad or you were just not feeling them or
Well, I did that to the COVID years, and then when I did that post on Instagram from these 20 years of street photography,
Mhm.
I found out that some years I had, let's say, 4 or 5 photos, which I think, those were good to represent that year.
Mhm.
And then sometimes I had just one, or
Mm.
maybe struggling to find one. So yeah,
You do look back at your work, your own work regularly? Is it like something you know?
more by accident when
Okay.
I'm looking for a certain picture that somebody asked for example.
Mm.
And I go to my hard drives, and sometimes I look at a folder and think, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
Or I remember a nice trip, a nice trip when you were there with a friend, and yeah, that was great. And I would look at those pictures. But it's not that I found after years that I look into a folder, there's some hidden gem there
Yeah.
that I forgot about.
Okay.
No, never happens. Maybe
Yeah.
slightly variation on a good photo. Maybe that one better, maybe, but no surprises there.
Okay. And like maybe for a second we can get into the well the getting home with your photos part. So you get home. You haven't seen your photos at all at that point, or maybe like a bit, but you're not like you
Yeah,
don't look.
just a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get into selecting. Is like, do you come home with like 1,000 photos and select like 2 or 3, or how does that look for you?
Let's say when I go to London
On
for,
average, of
let's say,
course.
5 nights in
Mm.
London, I come back with 70,000, 8,000 photos, which is a lot.
Yeah,
A lot of it is scrap. A lot of it is variation on the same scene.
yeah, of course, yeah.
And sometimes you look at it, oh, the scene wasn't interesting, so it's 40 photos that are not
Oh,
good.
okay, yeah.
That happens a lot. What I tend to do in the early years was to do it all chronologically, which is very, very bad, I think. Now I'm looking for specific photos that I think that could be good. And
Oh,
I'm
so
just
you don't
curious.
so you don't go through all your photos anymore. It's just like you know which
No.
ones you want, or
Well, in last week, a colleague of mine said, have you been to London again? I said, no. I went to London 2 months ago, but I'm publishing those photos
yeah,
during 3 or 4 months, let's say.
yeah, of course, yeah.
I don't really, I don't rush it. which is nice too. When I was really young, I wanted to do that all in a weekend. That's ridiculous. But
that's still where I'm at, but okay.
yeah.
I'm very fast with my
I could understand that when you're working for a client. When I'm doing something for my work, I tend to do that very quickly too. But for my own personal work, I take my time. And then, as I said, sometimes you think during a trip, maybe that one was a good one. So I look at those ones first. And then come the little surprises where we talked about. Where,
Yeah.
oh, I did that too. What was that? Okay. And sometimes the good surprises come at that moment where I think, oh, that was much better than I thought that it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always a nice surprise. I also have it the other way around, and that's not that nice.
Oh no, I hate.
You think like,
that's
this is gonna
horrible.
be a great photo, and then you see it on the big screen, it's like,
Yeah,
no,
that's the problem I think with modern cameras. The back screen is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sometimes.
Yeah, but also sometimes you're like, because it's like it's small, and you're like, I missed focus just a bit, or
Yep.
or whatever, or it's like a little bit too much movement in it, or
Yeah.
I had it. Well, it was the other way around. Like two days ago, I was in Ghent, and I took a couple of photos, and I wanted to try to do the ICM thing, like the camera movement, and I couldn't find the right exposure because also I was using a 24-70 millimeter, so that's every different focal length. Of course, you need a different shutter speed because it affects differently. But in the end, I did like the photos, but it on the screen it was like, it's not blurry enough or too blurry. I couldn't get it right, and on the screen, on the big screen on the computer, I saw like I did get it right. I was just looking at the wrong photos, but it's also the other way around.
And I'm curious just about your street photography. Are you good at curating your own work? Because I'm beginning to have doubts about it myself.
Well, that's a good question, because I don't think I ever had anyone else look at my like whole catalog, as to say. So I think I'm good at curating my own work, but at the same time, yeah, I never had a different set of eyes to it. So in that way, it's impossible to say. Maybe I'm really shit at it, and it's maybe there's a lot of gems hidden. Yeah, good question. Yeah, and what made you think?
When, for example, on Instagram, a lot of time I would post a series of 3 or 5 photographs. And when I'm doing the selection, sometimes it happens when a series of 3, for example, yeah, those 2 were really great. And will I add that one too? Yeah, I will add it because it makes a nice series. It's not a very good picture, but it works in that series of 3. And then people said, oh, the 3rd one is really good.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, and I think, oh shit.
Yeah.
I'm happy because it's always a compliment.
But it almost didn't get in there.
Yeah. So what I have promised my very good friend Charles, who is also a photographer, that I have to work on something like a zine or a little book, something on paper. And certainly he will help me to do the selection. Yeah, I will do a broad selection, and together we will make the small selection and even the sequence of the photos.
Yeah.
We'll talk to him, and I have a really good other friend called Erik, which is a man of many talents, but he's a graphic designer too, and he also has a very good eye for photos, and I think that I really need that help.
Yeah, but I think, like, in a way, like, you know your own worth the best, so it's like you can do it, but at the same time, I've never tried it. I've tried it. I've had to, like, other people look at my photo cell with a selection once, but it's like I think it can help, but it can also, like, you should always be in charge, I think, in the end, to make the final decision.
Sure.
But, like, yeah, maybe I should sometimes have give my Lightroom catalog to someone else to say, like, What do you think? But yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe we do that too little in these days.
Maybe also sometimes you have an emotional attachment to a photo
True. Yeah.
because it was a nice moment in a city somewhere. You felt great and you took a good photo, but it doesn't work in the series that you want to publish, for example.
No. Yeah.
I think then other people can say, I know you love that photo, but it doesn't work. It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
It's funny now that you mentioned it, because like right before we started recording, I was reading in the book from Joel Meyerowitz. It's A Question of Color.
Yeah.
Good photo book. Well, I've just started it, but in the beginning he says he and I forgot his name, Ray Jones or something. It was a different photographer. They would go out and then they would like discuss their photos together. So they would actually like have.
Interesting.
I'm not sure how often. I'm seeing if I can find names so fast, but it was about the story. So they would, because it was color, they had to project the photos like on a wall or whatever, and they would like discuss their photos together. I'm not sure like if it was weekly or like whenever, but it like now that you mentioned your question, it's reminds me of that it's. I think it's natural to ask like a second opinion, and sometimes it's good to have like someone say like, I know you like this photo, but you missed this spot, or you because they mentioned it like the specific feedback they sometimes gave each other, like you should have taken the photo just a second earlier, and now you missed the actual action or whatever. So yeah, maybe we photographers should do that more often.
I had that with my friend Erik, the graphic designer, because we worked together for the same employer for a couple of years, and I made a lot of photos for a project, and I gave him my broad selection, and then completely on his own, we didn't discuss the format of the publication. He only said one thing: I like the photos. I'm gonna. There will be large formats sometimes. There will be little ones, but there will be big ones in its publication. And it was like a journal. It was that big.
Mhm.
And then he showed me the results on a PDF. I was blown away by his selection.
Mhm.
In that sense that I had a certain maybe sequencing in my head. He totally changed that. He combined big photos with little ones, more post photos with fly on the wall stuff.
Mhm.
And I couldn't believe my eyes. And I maybe it's exaggerated, but I couldn't even recognize my own work. It was like, oh, it was looking at your work with a big distance.
Mhm.
And how it was amazing.
Yeah.
And because I really have to do more than just publish on my website and Flickr and Instagram, I want to work on a publication, but I will, have the help of some people to be really, really useful. And I hear that all the time from other photographers too.
I think it might help. Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Joshua Jackson, who has this amazing book, Sleepless in Soho.
Oh no.
And he said more or less the same. Yeah, he said more or less the same thing. I had a large selection, and I absolutely wanted those photos in the books. And then was the graphic designer, or I don't know, said, "No, it's too much. We have to really have a small selection." And also, a couple of his favorites aren't in the book.
Yeah, it's the Kill Your Darlings.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes like recently it was I'm not sure why I did it anymore, but I was going through some old photos as well, like I had to find something or whatever, and I was going through the entire like timeline almost of my street photography specifically.
Yeah.
And like you can see like a clear evolution in my work, but also like sometimes it's like, oh, this photo is actually really, really good. And like I forgot about it, or like I remember it, but I'm not actively remembering it. And it's actually better than I remembered, or so also the other way around, of course. But it's like sometimes you, as you said, like you need to distance to your work.
Yep.
And I think it's easier if, well, of course you can wait for a year or 2 years to look at your photos again, but I think it's often easier to just ask someone who is independent of your work to have to be your second set of eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, or after city trip, don't do all your editing during a weekend, but take 3 or 4 months, do it in your own time.
Yeah.
That's useful, I think.
Yeah, for me, it's how I work. Like during a city trip, for example, for me, it's crazy that you only do you don't even look at the photos at night, for example. What I do is like I have my laptop with me, and at the end of the day, I select and edit the photos of that day.
Okay.
Because like for me, if I wait with photos, especially like even for clients or my own photos, doesn't really matter. Like if I wait with them and make new ones, I'm already not any more interested in the previous ones.
Okay.
So if I don't edit the photos of today and I make some more tomorrow, I will not be interested in those of today anymore.
Yeah, I understand.
So, but like in a way, I know I need to slow down. That's also like I used to make like I'm not sure if you work with Lightroom, but I used to make like a separate catalog for every separate day. So like for my clients, I have a separate catalog per client, but for my own photography as well. Like if I would be, for example, in Nice in France for 5 days recently, I would have 5 separate catalogs.
Okay.
Now I just have one catalog for all my street photography. So now it's like almost, I think it's a year old now, the catalog. So it has all my street photos of the last year. And that makes it easier to go back once in a while to see like, okay, maybe this wasn't the best edits, or but it's funny to me how different photographers look. For me, it has to be fast, and I'm already sick of my photos. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sick of them. Like I still like them, but I need to have them like finished. But for others like you, but also like Manja de Prater, she's also like, she uploads all her photos to her smartphone, and then she just edits whenever she has the time. But sometimes it's like a recent photo, if I understood her correctly, and sometimes it's a really old photo. She just goes to her unedited library and is like, oh, this one is, yeah, today I'm going to work on this one, and it's just like kind of at random.
It's nice. Not so long ago, there was an Instagram account called Timeless Photo Mag, who published a selection of my photos. I didn't know them that they will do that. That was a nice surprise, and I was surprised by the sequencing too.
They did like a good job, or?
Yeah. And what really was funny, there was some Canon work there, some Fujifilm, and even a photo on a smartphone.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And it looked more or less consistent, so I was really happy with that.
Yeah.
But it also, seeing your work like that, it's from a distance, and you're surprised, and that's a lovely thing, I think.
Yeah. Do you often print your photos?
No, not enough.
Okay.
What I will do now is make small prints of everything.
Yeah.
The stuff that I like, and then think about. I think that I know the theme, but I won't go into it now because I will change my mind.
Yeah.
And then do the broad selection, not the sequencing. I think the broad selection. A couple of friends talk about it, and then find a nice format for printing it. Is it a zine? Is it something else? I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Could be postcards. Could be anything.
Yeah.
Because I love photo books. I love photo zines, like you do. And it's...
Yeah, I've never been into, I don't think I ever had a zine in my hands so far, but I do have a lot of photo books. Yeah. That's, yeah. That's, maybe a more expensive hobby than photography. Uh,
Yeah, I went to Paris Photo Fair and I looked at prints, but I will stick to the photo books because the budgets on the prints there.
yeah, it's but it's like to every photo exhibition, there's like you have to get the book of the exhibition, of course, and then sometimes there's like something more random that's not necessarily linked to the exhibition, but it's still interesting.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you've paid your museum ticket, but also like 3 or 4 books. Yeah, that's yeah.
yeah. That's nice. That's nice.
Like every time I see someone that I follow on Instagram, like "Oh, I bought, I've made a book. That's like okay, I'm gonna order it. And then sometimes it's a bit disappointing, but it's always like I want to have that book and I want to see what it's
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
So that's yeah, it's a big investment of money, but also of space.
yeah. I know the
Um,
feeling. I know the feeling.
but I asked the question of the printing because I've been playing around with the question myself. Because like maybe to get back to the one time I had people watch, or the one time that I had other people look at my work for like help me with a selection. I was in this photo club in Brussels. It's called Viewfinders, yeah. And now I'm not in there anymore because to me, like I was a member for another year when I got back to Antwerp. But the distance, it's just annoying because
Yeah, yeah.
it didn't work out in my schedule, so I'm not in the club anymore. But they did an exhibition for all members. You could just participate. And then they also held like photo moments. So you could bring like small prints of your photos and help and ask people to like, I have this idea in mind of my selection, or like sequencing or whatever, and they could help. And to me, it was interesting to have like all my photos like printed out, and I was telling the people like, okay, I want to have these 3 prints in like a bigger format, and then these 5 around them in smaller format or whatever my idea was. But you had a limited space, of course. You had like 2 or 3 meters, I think, a wall. And then it was like people like, okay, but like leave out the small ones, like just take the 3 big ones. It's like, ah, yeah, but I also like these ones. It's like, yeah, but it's gonna be much more stronger if you just. So it can help for first of all printing the photos and seeing them for yourself, but also like showing it to people. And that's why I'm considering it, but I've been thinking about it for 3 months now, to print out all of my photos that I've made like the past year, 2 years.
Mhm.
And like it's like easier to combine them. Like if you want to
Yeah.
make like even just for Instagram, if you make like a carousel post, you can make it easier to like combine photos because now you're often looking to make series with the photos you made like the last month.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But maybe there's a good photo you made like a year ago that fits better. So that's something I'm considering, but also like for series or for books or for whatever it can help. So I was just wondering if anyone else was talking about the issue, because you were talking about making a zine, and what drives you to make a zine?
Well, I bought some zines recently, and also I never printed a lot of my work. When I did, sometimes photos were getting better. Most of the times they were getting worse, to be honest. Sometimes you look at a file and you're really pleased with it. You make a print, you say, oof,
Yeah, okay.
not nice. But sometimes they're, like we always talk about here, the nice surprises. It's also a way of have a little more distance. I have the idea to make a lot of prints, make a selection, put it on a wall somewhere for a month and look at it every day, consciously or unconsciously, then make my selection and then talk to other people. And I'm thinking about the format. Could be a zine or something else. I think that would be useful to progress.
Yeah,
And to decide, okay, I've got something here or not. And maybe in the coming years, I can concentrate on that or that. It will help me to find focus, I guess.
yeah.
And also, it's a bit scary to show your work to the world, but it can be very satisfying as well, of course.
Yeah, and it's like it's probably like I would be scared as well, but I think in the end it's always people are usually nice about it. So it's
Yeah,
like it's scary, but in the end it's like okay, it's actually very
even
much
on
satisfying.
social media, my experience that people are super nice.
Yeah, I've like now that you mentioned, I don't think I've had a bad comment in like a long time on any of my photos, if
Yeah.
any ever. So like yeah, that's true. In a way, I think also it's because people are too. It's like if some photos get a lot of comments, but it's often very superficial. So I'm like, it's like ah, great photo or whatever. And it's like I'm not sure if I need to accept it too much because it's like an actual nice comment, and they just lack the vocabulary to compliment why it's a great photo or whatever,
Mhm.
or it's just like a quick way to like show up for themselves to be I like that. So it's like social media for me. It's like I'm not sure what I think of it. It's very much useful, but at the same time, how real is it? Like or like how valuable are comments or likes or yeah. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
I think that's a whole philosophical discussion we can spend several episodes on.
Oh, yeah. But
So yeah, sorry, you want to say?
for me, the important thing is, the reason to leave the house and get out there and do your thing.
Yeah,
That's nice. And the reactions can be a bonus, let's say.
yeah,
But also, it's really useful to look at other people's work.
yeah. Of course, yeah, sure,
Yeah,
and connect
and
with other people, of course.
sure, and sometimes finding out more how they work, gear sometimes too.
Yeah,
Some people say gear is not important. Okay, I think it is a bit.
to
It
some
forces,
degree, I think it
yes,
is.
sometimes a certain lens, for example, forces me to take other kind of photos.
Yeah, but also I'm not sure who said it anymore. But it's something I've remembered for a couple of months now. It was someone who said uh, like you have to be happy to use your camera. If it's like a shit camera, yeah, you won't go out with it. Or like if you don't like using it, you won't go out with it. So it's like, sure, if that $5,000 Leica, I'm not sure how much they cost, like, to be honest. But like, if that motivates you to go out and make photos, that's fine. If you're happy with a $200
Yeah, sure.
whatever, that's fine as well. But it's just like the gear is the specs aren't maybe necessarily the most important, but it's important to have a camera that you enjoy using.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Same with the lenses, yeah.
I had that very much with that Fujifilm on that Berlin trip.
Mm.
I realized I've found my new thing here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that was really important. And yeah, of course, I was in London in June, I think, and I met up with a guy by accident, and he had a Sony, and he said, "Oh, you work with Fuji?" I said, "Yeah, I love it a lot. Take a few shots with my Sony." Well, it was a different world in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
autofocus, etc. But I love my Fuji. I won't switch to Sony because of that.
No, of course, yeah.
But
No, yeah,
do you have experience with medium format
no,
digital? I'm
no.
curious about that.
Uh,
I saw a video this week from a guy was in New York with a rather old Fujifilm medium format, which is very slow apparently, but he liked it because it slowed him down.
yeah,
The images were great, and he said, "I did something as an experiment, but I think I'm gonna continue this."
yeah, of course.
I would more be interested in medium format for portraits.
Perhaps, yeah, sure.
That's
Or like landscape,
something
but
that's
yeah.
intriguing to me.
Mm.
I did that on film for a while, for 2 years, with the Mamiya or the Z67, and I did some street photography as well with it. It was really difficult,
Mm.
but a challenge slowed me down once again. Did some
Yeah,
landscapes and some portraits. Oh, it was really nice.
but yeah. I think like a good camera can help a lot, but it's really what you want to get out of it. Like as you said, like for me, medium format wouldn't work because it's like a bit slower indeed.
Yeah,
And I'm like you have the hunter and fisher
yeah,
fish
yeah,
and
yeah.
shoot photography first. I'm very much a hunter. Like as you said, like I can wait 5 minutes on a photo spot. Like I can wait 5 minutes for people, but like 20 minutes, that's really pushing it for me.
Yeah,
Like if it's a really good photo spot and there's enough happening, I might, but I'm not the most patient person in that regard. So, for example, like medium format or like a tripod, absolutely hate tripods. Can't stand them. I have some, of course, because I need them sometimes, but it's it's not for me.
yeah,
Which
yeah,
which is not to say that I don't understand people that use tripods. Like I understand that it's for some people it's a good way to slow down. For example, sometimes I
yeah.
should maybe. But it's like I think gear has to match who you are and not the other way around. Like you don't have to buy Nikon or Canon or Leica. Don't buy Leica because you think it's necessary for you need a Leica to be a street photographer. Buy a Leica because you like the way it looks and feels and it fits you.
Yeah, sure.
For me, it's well, I think I like Leica cameras. Like they do look very nice.
They look really
Uh,
nice.
but I've bought myself into Nikon. I have too many lenses to change now to a different brand, so I'm not gonna. And I like Nikon, so I'm not gonna change anyway. But it's like there's no there's no bad camera brand or bad cameras to speak.
Sure.
Especially in this day and age, all cameras are.
And so, can I conclude that you're a bit impatient for staying at one location, but do you, for example, in Antwerp, go back to the same neighborhoods, or do you?
Yes, yeah. So I do revisit places a lot.
Yeah,
So
me too.
I don't mind like in Antwerp it's a bit less, but for example in Brussels, like you can go to like a place and then go again to the same place 2 days later, and it's completely different
Yeah,
because
yeah,
either
yeah.
they started doing roadworks or they're starting to make like set up a podium for some
Mhm.
random event, or like there's always
Yeah, yeah,
something or the sun hits different that day, or so that I do, yeah. So
yeah. Me too.
I don't mind going back to the same places over and over again. Um, but I do like I do walk quite some distances.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
for example, in Nice 3 weeks ago, it was like the Promenade des Anglais,
Mhm.
which I absolutely loved as a photo. It's silly because it's just like a concrete slab at the beach, so it's like there's not much, but that made it so interesting because you had like the background of the sky and the beach, and then just the silhouettes of the people. So it was really like um, a cleaned up scene.
Yeah,
I think I walked it several times a day for those 5 days because it always was something to photograph there.
nice.
So I don't mind that at all, but I'm not gonna wait longer than 10 minutes, for example, for the right person to walk by or something. Like it's more like I see something, I photograph it, and I
Yep,
move on. I do sometimes, of course, like you have like the light pockets. You sometimes have like
yep.
it's like uh, I do wait there, of course, for someone to pass. But it's like if after 10 minutes I don't have the right person, I'm sick of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I had it 2 days ago in Ghent. I had my frame ready, but I waited for like 5 or 6 minutes, and I had some cyclists coming through my frame, but never in the right spot. But for me, it's okay. This is not happening today, and I'll move on. Maybe I'll come back to that spot later, and then I'll try again. But I won't stay there like 5 hours until I have the right photo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's not my no.
When I'm in London, it's always a combination of the locations that I really love.
Mhm.
Let's say during daytime, Brick Lane and Shoreditch with all the great street art,
Mhm.
etc. Favorite spot with my Ricoh. And then at night it's Soho.
Okay.
And I walk doing 10 rounds of the same streets
Mm.
for a couple of hours. And it's so many photographers go there too.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
It makes sense. It's so attractive in a special way. Um, Yeah, I like that. And then also it's really nice to go, okay, I've never been to that neighborhood or that neighborhood.
Mm.
I'm gonna go there for 7 or 8 hours
Yeah.
and look at it.
Yeah.
That's nice too. I like both.
True. For me, I like to go more into the like the suburban environment, like the like outside of the city centers, like the in Brussels it would be like the I don't know Elsene,
Yeah, yeah.
Watermaal Bosvoorde, like the surrounding districts of the city,
Yep.
which are more like living neighborhoods. But at the same time, I find, or like I'm afraid that it would be a waste of time because it's like very often it's just like a row of front doors and there's like nothing to see or that happens because there's no one there. So it's like, yeah, I'm not sure about exploring different neighborhoods all the time, but it's yeah something to look into because by now I know the city center of Brussels and of Antwerp by heart, and I know every corner, or I think at least I know it. Still, it changes, of course, but it's sometimes nice to go to someplace else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It depends on my mood as well. Sometimes I'm really into crowds and
Mm.
sometimes not at all.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, makes
Because
sense.
that's when you start out in street photography to go to a crowded place or a touristy place or events, that's the perfect thing to start, I think.
Mm.
It's much more easier to do that than photograph a single person somewhere.
Yeah,
People don't mind. People are taking photographs themselves at those locations which are really crowded. So as a starting point, that was really useful for me.
true. And also like at events, or like for example, for me that was really helpful to go to the gay pride this summer
Yep.
because it's people are expecting to be
Yep.
photographed. So it's like if for me it's like it was a practice to get into photographing people more because I do it for my job all the time and I don't mind it because it's at an event and people expect me to do so. But on the streets it's still daunting, and I think events like that are like pride parades or like right now the Christmas markets I'm planning on going because
Yep.
it's people have more or less like the expectation that they will be photographed or that will be someone taking photos. So it helps to overcome that barrier, I think.
Yeah,
Or at least I hope so.
I had a very good time this year at Belgium National Day, 21st of July.
Oh yeah, well, I was
And that
planning to go, but I had something else to do, but I'm not
and that
sure.
was more or less of an exercise because I took a wide lens.
Yeah.
And it was really useful because it was super crowded. I had a really nice time there.
No, yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah,
nobody
minds.
minds that you took pictures.
No, but exactly like Christmas markets, gay prides, or other or other parades or whatever, national holidays. Those are exactly like, or like in the summertime, you all have all these types of events,
Yeah.
concerts or whatever. So yeah, I think that's a great moment. I'm gonna have a look if I have any final questions because I think we're gonna have to wrap up now. Maybe we mentioned like a lot of Brussels, London, and Paris. Like you seem to be more into the metropolitan big cities, or is that wrong? In Berlin.
Yeah. Before this conversation, we talked about Hamburg. I've been there too, but all my photos were crap.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that city, but yeah.
Yeah, me too. I had a great time there, but the photos weren't good. I love Munich. I go there almost every year. Lovely city. Much more laid back than London or something like that.
Okay.
But also there, my photographs aren't always that good. I don't know why. Maybe I need the buzz and the high energy of London, for example. I don't know where. I've been to Manchester, Liverpool, Edinburgh, Glasgow. Great time, but the pictures weren't that great. Or maybe I've, from one trip, one good one that I really like. I don't know why. Of
Okay.
course, people that know me well. I'm obsessed by London. I go there 3 or 4 times per year.
Okay. Like,
That has to do originally with the music. For me, it was a music city when I was really young, obsessed by music, like David Bowie, etc. I went on Bowie tours with friends
okay, cool.
to look at studios or other locations where we had gigs, etc. That was the main attraction point at first. But also, it's 2 hours away. It's a big city. The neighborhoods are very, very different, I think. So if you say, I want to spend my time in nature, you can go to, let's say, Richmond Park, and you won't see a lot of people there. I mean, a lot of things are possible there.
Yeah.
And that attracts me. That attracts me a lot.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah.
And then you fall in and out of love with cities. Didn't go to Paris for 10 years. Then I went back for 1 night only because I was going to Zurich. And I rediscovered the city that night. And I'm going back 2 times a year, for example.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
It's a really interesting city too, but it's very, very different from London, for example.
And can you say in what way? Like, do people react differently to being photographed, or
well, the Parisians don't mind at all either.
Okay.
Maybe some kind of arrogance sometimes there. They don't mind at all,
Even like for me, the difference between people in Nice or in Paris was huge.
Yeah. But the difference between London and Glasgow or Liverpool is huge.
Yeah,
too.
true.
I was there with my friend Christophe a long time ago, 2009, I think. We went to a gig for Massive Attack in Manchester, and we stayed there for a couple of days. And we were walking around. I don't know why, but I had the 70-200 mm lens on.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
And everybody thought that we were professional paparazzi, so they came up to us to talk and to get their picture taken and just jump in front of the camera. We had a great time there. That you won't have that in London.
No,
Londoners are much more maybe distant, or if you're in a pub and you're alone, they will come to talk to you in more the northern side of the country than in London, for example.
Okay, cool.
It's really different.
And do you notice differences in your photography as well, like between London and Paris?
Not really.
The way you do work?
No, I was in this neighborhood that last night in Paris called Quai de l'Ourcq, which I've never been to. And I've got to go there again because I don't know. I took really good pictures there. I don't know why. They were a bit different. So it's sometimes really difficult to explain why that worked or that didn't. It's very different.
Okay.
Every time. And sometimes I go to Soho, which is my favorite photo spot, and I don't take good pictures.
Yeah, it happens
too.
Yeah.
But it's not a problem. I can go back. Anytime I like.
No, yeah, exactly. It's also like it just happens. Some days you don't have any, you don't feel it, or it's the circumstances aren't in your favor or whatever.
Yeah.
It's it happens. So I don't think we should punish ourselves for that. Like at the end of the day, if you're having fun, that's plenty.
Of course. And for the future, do we have like, let's say, dream destinations for street photography?
Oh, good question. I would really like New York, maybe, because it's like
the mecca of street photography in a way.
Kind of, yeah. Like I was just looking in a book of Vivian Maier as well. It's a lot of New York and Chicago. Was it Chicago? I'm not sure. New York. Yeah, Chicago. And so those 2 cities, probably. I have to be honest, like it's been a long time since I've been in London. So it's probably pre-COVID. So I should go there. I wasn't doing any street photography at that point. So I really am curious to experience that. I think Manchester is high on my list as well.
Yeah, nice city.
And then I have to think. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. Like, obviously, I want to try more cities than just those, but I think those would be like very much like street photography aimed trips. Like, I'm not going there with a friend. I'm just going there
Oh, yeah.
purely to make photos. I think. So, do you have any?
I should go back to New York. I've been there 3 times and two
Okay.
times with a friend, Christoph. I want to go back. And then I have some friends who are photographers who went to Japan,
Of
but
course,
they
yeah.
went for 3 weeks or sometimes more. They'll say me the same thing. It's a different world. You're totally disorientated, but it's really, really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting culture, interesting scenes, the people, the way they behave and dress. It's a different world,
Mm.
and that's really, really appealing. But it's not for the coming years, I think, but maybe later.
Yeah, I'll suggest we wrap it up here because I think we're actually hitting the 2 hour mark already.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to Bart before we started, I'm aiming for the 1 hour mark, but yeah, missed it
You should edit.
completely.
You should edit.
No, it's all going to be because it's all interesting, so it's all going to be on there. But it's sorry for anyone listening. Like you have to think of it as for yourself as a part 1 and a part 2, perhaps.
Oh, nice.
People
Well,
can listen in more than one go.
in all cases, it's been a pleasure to talking to you, and it's also nice to know a bit about your process.
Yeah.
And I still got a lot of questions, so we will
Oh, okay. Maybe
meet again offline or something.
Or we'll
and
do.
you really should go to London again if you're into the more, let's say, action photos. Plenty of opportunities there.
Maybe it's a good
Brick
good
Lane,
place to
for example,
try.
would be a nice starting point.
Yeah,
Always something happening there during the daytime.
good to know. Yeah, but exactly like we'll probably meet up in Brussels one day, I hope. Otherwise, we'll do a part 2 maybe in a couple of months. And for everyone listening, I'm also obviously going to put all the links to Bart's blog and Instagram in the show notes or in the description and in the show notes. So make sure to go there to check all the links. Of course, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to it, like Spotify or YouTube. And I hope to see you in the next episode. Bye.